Hello everyone, and welcome to another News Coolum video. And well, I'm going to call this I need to run to the bank, but some of you might actually consider this a road trip video, so sure, it's a road trip video. Yeah, let's go run to the bank, and I need to do a little bit of shopping along the way, pick up some pet food, stuff like that. And who knows what we'll run into while we're out there. So yeah, it's a little afternoon. I don't normally like to make longer shopping trips this late in the day. It's going to be dark by the time we get back, especially this time of year. And but I also got the wrong package delivered, and so I need to drop it off before the post office closes. So now's better than never. No times like the now, or something present. Let's hit the road. All right, well, I wanted to do a quick stop here at the Willows northbound rest area on I-5. Caltrans hasn't really maintained these chargers at all. They're the BTC L3R and BTC Power. They just have terrible reputation when it comes to their screens. They just die very, very quickly. And in this case, I've noted this before, but the way Caltrans set them up in this region, there was an additional requirement for activation that required the screen to be on, whereas some of the other ones don't actually require that. They just automatically start the charger. And the reason they can do that is Caltrans can't actually charge for the power that they dispense here. There's a law that would prohibit them from doing so. So having any sort of an authorization activation on these screens is just irrelevant anyway. But then also, because they can't charge for that power, this Caltrans 3030 program, they have absolutely zero incentive to fix these chargers either. So who knows? We'll see. Either way, I think this is just a overall poor implementation by a government agency that knew it needed to do something for electric vehicles, didn't know what to do. They came up with a proposal, didn't really consult the EV community as far as I know, and so what they ended up with was, at best, a lackluster deployment with only a few sites that consistently work, and probably very little or low likelihood that these are ever going to be fixed or maintained in any way that's going to serve any sort of public good. So we'll see. But for now, let's continue on. It was, they're free to use, so I figured I'd check in on the status and see what it's like. But yeah, still not working. All right, so stopping here in Orland at I was going to go to the Pilot Flying J, and I might still go. Part of my motivation for stopping here at this EVgo is that, basically budgetary reasons, right? Yeah, yes, I have a EVgo credit, right, that expires at the end of this month, and it... I've already used, I think, something like $40 or $50 out of the $80. But it goes much farther here as long as you're not like on peak hours. So because this is before 4 p.m., the rates here are easily 15-20 cents per kilowatt hour less than they would be at the Pilot Flying J. The only problem is one of these stations is down. So it looks like there's something going on with this station that EVgo needs to fix, because one of the chargers is down completely. And then this other one works fine in terms of auto charge, started right up. I mean, it's a Delta charger, so it takes a while to start. But if the screen says it's up and running, then it's generally okay. But this one seems to be limited to, well, a little bit less than 100 amps right now. So it looks like there's something going on with this charger also. So one of them is out completely, another one of them is partially down, so I'm only charging at 27 kilowatts. So like I said, I was going to stop here instead of the Pilot Flying J because the Bolt doesn't really see any speed advantage in using the faster 350 kilowatt chargers, and also it's just cheaper to use this charger. Now, this place actually has a better area to walk the doggy, so I might still do that anyway. And then of course there's another, I posted this up in a community comments tab noting EVgo is offering a $20 credit for Pass Plus and Max members, or I think you probably had to have had the membership for over a year. But as long as you have a charging session in December where you charge at least 5 kilowatt hours of energy, then you'll get a $20 credit in January. So I guess I don't have to charge here for 5 kilowatt, but just get it out of the way. So this is really interesting. You know, I never checked out this side, I guess. I thought I checked both sides of these, so I didn't really look. But this site here in Orland, it actually has, and I've seen this before, this is this green charge grid energy or grid synergy storage. I believe I've seen a version of this before with the charge point in Red Bluff. And let's see, it's the operating voltage, continuous current. So yeah, so it looks like this can output like 120 amps up to 780 volts. If I'm reading that properly. I don't really see a capacity or how big this battery is, but this is kind of a nice alternative. And you know, it could actually indicate, because this screen here is not powered on, I don't know if it would be normally. Like I said, I don't recall seeing this backside of this unit before, but this is a great way of offsetting you know, demand charges at the grid. But if this battery is down, that could explain why one of these units is down. And then I did check how far we have to go. So I actually think I'm good just charging here long enough for the little guy to finish his rounds. And then we can hit the road. And then one other criticism I was going to have of this EVgo unit, again, these are facing south, which I just don't like, especially if you don't have a canopy. But as you can see there, you can barely read that screen. So I didn't know that this unit was down until I pulled in front of the unit and kind of squinted at the screen because it looked a little bit different. They either need some brighter screens if they're gonna do these south facing, or they need some way of shading it, or again, some sort of a canopy to go over these chargers so that they can be, you know, easily seen. Okay, so I decided to just stop here really quick. This is the Petro station here in Corning, the BP Pulse, and I just wanted to check to see, you know, what's happening, because we know the transformers were installed a while ago. It looks like they've taken all the wraps off of this, so I don't know what we're really waiting on at this point. I anticipate this one being the next one open. So this is a smaller station. This one is only 6. I say only 6, but that's actually a very large station for this region of California. So yeah, like I said, all of the wraps are off. Max current, 600 amps. Max charging voltage, 1,000 amps. And we'll see how, normally when they say this though, it can't do the full 1,000 volts with the full current. There's a cutoff point, and usually that, you know, that's why it's a max rated output power of 400. So you'll see 600 amps in 400 volt cars, but generally speaking, there will be a cutoff where it's no longer able to hit that full 600 amps. And that's something that you'll notice with like the GM Ultium platforms, where they can accept 500 amps, but up to like 800 volts. And a lot of chargers won't actually supply that much current to that high of a voltage. So you just want to be aware of that. But as far as that's concerned, these HYC 500s are some of the best, most powerful chargers on the market right now. You know, it's got the standard arms. These are going to be handy. So yeah, it's just a matter of when this is going to go online. I just wanted to check it out, and I'm still not convinced that these are going to be canopies. I believe this is just going to be lighting, but these pillars are significant enough they might possibly be able to do a small canopy. We'll see. But again, I'm looking forward to this one going online pretty soon. It'll be a nice update for this region. All right, well, I can confirm that my new debit card works, and yeah, I still at least have a few dollars left in the bank, I guess. Looks like we're gonna need to charge though. Only about 25% battery. I wish there was some place around here that I could charge in Red Bluff. I wish there was a location nearby where I could charge my car. I guess I'll have to look for one. What's this? What's this? Ah! I'm in Red Bluff. And there are chargers. All right, enough joking around. Mercedes-Benz High-Power Charging Network has gone live. So let's see if we can get this to work. So I don't know what this means. Start charging, credit, debit card, $25 US. I wonder if that means that this is a, I wonder if that means that this is a $25 hold. Let's see. They've got instructions. This is my first time using Mercedes-Benz. So you can pay with your ChargePoint app. ChargePoint or your vehicle's app. Plug and charge supported vehicles start automatically. You're gonna have to see. And then of course the terminal is required, but I wonder if this means that I could actually use my ChargePoint card. I might do that just for science. And then there was something else. It did show the pricing here. Yeah, so it's 50 cents per kilowatt hour. Not great, but for California, that's okay. And then they also have an idle fee after 30 minutes after your car stops charging. So 30 minutes is pretty generous. Much more generous than Electrify America, but still, again, that was more of an issue of the charger failing. And then so no pre-selected connector. So basically you just start, you pay first and then connect. All right, so let me see. Let me see if a ChargePoint card actually works here. This will be interesting if it does. It looks like my ChargePoint app works. So just this, we've got the good cable connections. These are really light cables. Holy cow, this is super easy. This is super, super easy. Like I am surprised at just how painless this process was. If you have your RFID card, and of course I'm wearing my pants with many pockets, so now I can't remember where I put my RFID card. Okay, I got it. Okay, so this is, I mean, not super fast activation time, but not super slow either. So I think this is just standard for the Alpitronics. And it's 40 kilowatt now. So I wonder too if part of why I was charging slowly is my battery might have been cold. It was down to freezing last night, and I didn't really have my car plugged in at nighttime. So I guess it's possible that slower charge rate at the EVgo could have been my car's, you know, partially my car, because it should be charging at way more than 40 kilowatt right now at 23%. So I could just still have a cold battery. But yeah, again, like I said, I'm not clear on this. This looks like it might be a $25 hold, which is probably going to be about what you'd end up paying. Okay, and then active session. And then, so it looks like these two are shared, so only one of these is going to be available, and then both of those are going to be available. It doesn't really tell you how much additional power is available. And then, okay, and then this is charging detail. Yeah, so see, it kind of peaked, and I think this is just my battery maybe being cold and saying I don't quite want that much power yet. So who knows? And then again, it's cost detail. This will get you running cost, connector 3A, energy delivered. Yeah, so this is just a very clean interface. It looks like they want sort of the black and white contrast. Charging detail, 300. Yeah, and now I can't remember, they might have updated this since. So again, this is actually the same back placard that we saw at the BP Pulse with the 600 amp max current, 1000 volt. And again, like I said, these are probably rated, and I haven't seen anyone like confirm this yet, but these are probably rated at up to 600 amps up to 500 volts. Would that be right? I guess. Yeah, so either way, like I said, and then again, this is a smaller deployment. This is kind of what we've gotten used to with Northern California. These even off of the, right, like I said, the freeway is literally right there. What we've gotten used to is these 4-stall deployments, which I'm not inherently against, right? Because I feel like you can just add more sites rather than necessarily piling on. This is not a very big parking lot. Even though it's got several businesses here, it's not a huge parking plaza. But you know, you're using up 4 of these spaces for high-power chargers, like I said, just off the freeway. And then again, they went and they added basically these NACs as well. So now there's native NAC support, there's CCS1 support, there is no CHAdeMO support. But I also wonder too if this isn't Mercedes maybe indicating that they are intending to release their own vehicles with NACs moving forward. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. And then this is probably European, so this would be July 14, 2025. And like I said, these cables, it's not just the cable management. These cables are super light. So these must be the oil-cooled 600 amp cables, which you know, should also help with vehicles that maybe have charging cable overheating. And then again, like I said, this is just a standard Alpitronic armature that helps these cables to reach. And just to kind of show, right, if I take this cable out, I'm gonna pull this Steve from Plug and Play EV, and I guess this is probably the corner where you couldn't reach, but this is a pretty long reach where you should be able to pull in almost anywhere in these charging stalls and have this cable reach. So this is just a really good implementation, and you know, these are powered on now, and they did do what I suggested, or they did not do what I suggested that they not do not. Anyway, they didn't put any parking blocks here. So what this means is, you know, if you're in a longer EV that's, I mean, it's not gonna support like a full travel trailer, but if you are in a longer EV that's maybe towing a modest trailer, you're gonna be able to fit in here and just pulling in, and it's not gonna be an issue at all. And now we actually, well, I don't know if the lightning, we just saw lightning, thunderbolt and lightning, then coming to a theater near you. I did notice that, okay, this lit up. For a second I was worried that this was actually not working, but it looks like it is. So this is just overall a great, and then of course this has an indicator light, or not well, maybe an indicator light too. I'm not seeing an indication yet, but there is a light here that I'm guessing is gonna make this fairly bright and easy to see and easy to use even at nighttime. So overall, I am just super impressed with this site. This is just well executed. Now, I did get a bit of a heads up from Mercedes that this site had gone live, and this just is the first time that I've had a chance to get out here. Let's see. Actually, why did it say that? Oh, I thought I saw something else that. So active sessions, metering. Oh, so this is, I think, this is how many kilowatt hours each one of these is already used. This is awesome. I hope this is coming out. So the charging handle that I'm using is already dispensed 566 kilowatt hours. This NAX cable here, 93 kilowatt hours. This other CCS one, 422 kilowatt hours, and then this one, this other NAX, 35 kilowatt hours. So they're actually tracking the usage of these cables, which is the first time I've actually seen a charging provider do this. This is awesome. So this is clearly the most used handle, at least on this unit. And like I said, this site's went live, I think, the day before Thanksgiving or 2 days before Thanksgiving, something like that. And this is telling me that already this one unit has dispensed over a megawatt hour of power, of energy. And that's, like I said, hasn't even been open for a week yet. So a megawatt in less than a week. That is absolutely ridiculous. And then I don't know with this one, maybe it will show if I go there. Holy cow, this one's used even more. What the heck? This is like, this one's dispensed like 2 megawatt hours, and this one's dispensed 1 megawatt hour, and that's in the first week that these have been open. This is ridiculous. This one dispenser has almost already dispensed a full 1 megawatt hour. Now, I'm sure some of this is probably testing and validation that Mercedes-Benz has done, unless I'm completely misreading this, but I mean, this is pretty straightforward. Metering, 832.6875 kilowatt hours. Ridiculous amounts of energy already being fed through this. Like I said, it is just coming off of Thanksgiving, but this site has only been open for a week. And between these two dispensers, it's already dispensed 3 megawatt hours of power or more. I'd have to do the total in my head again, because like I said, these two alone are another megawatt hour, and this one is, yeah, so like two and a half megawatt hours between these two chargers in less than a week of opening. So this is just overall an amazing site. Again, there's also trash here. I think some people are signaling that maybe, and this is not on Mercedes, right? This is also on the facility, but maybe people are signaling, hey, maybe you should have a recycle bin as well. Usually this isn't too big of a deal too. Like a lot of times you'll want to just leave recyclables on top, because people who need the money will come by and pick up recyclables and take them. And then of course you have a place to eat in Burrito Banditos. There's a frozen yogurt. There's a Starbucks. So there are facilities here. And then, like I said, we are just off of the freeway. And oh my God, oh boy, I'm not going to say anything. You know, I like the Hummer EV. Yeah, Angeline. All right, like, okay, so anyway, so enough fanboying. What the heck? This is just and yeah, and I'm charging slow, but at least I'm up to $4 now. All right, Mercedes, yike. Well, what else to say but you're welcome? Wait, or thank you, Mercedes, you're welcome. Yeah, holy cow, like I said, yeah, I actually just spoke to the Ford Lightning driver, and he was saying that he didn't even know these chargers were here, and he just charged up at the Electrify America in Anderson, hoping to go to the restaurant that's right next door, and that restaurant right now is closed. And then he said, but the Burrito Bandito here is great, which I keep hearing people say that Burrito Bandito is indeed a good place to stop to eat. You know, they have a few different ones around here in Northern California. So if you're making a road trip through, this is a absolutely marvelous charging stop. You know, I normally, how do I want to put it? Like, I try to curb my enthusiasm a little bit. This site, and of course, again, I knew that this site was coming. I knew that, you know, Mercedes-Benz does really, really good stuff. I've used Alpitronic hyperchargers before, the one at the BP Pulse in the LA Giga Hub. But just this experience in the wild, like they've punched so far above expectations in terms of what I was hoping for or thinking or expecting. So yeah, this just punched so far above my expectations for what this site would be that I'm just gonna say it, like, this is great. So Mercedes-Benz, you nailed it, you hit it out of the park. If you can put more sites like this along I-5 throughout California, like just the user experience, the fact that I can use my charge point RFID, you can use your charge point app, everything's set up, you don't need to add a new payment or anything like that. Or, you know, and it does look like they have a $25 hold on the credit card, which isn't great. I should have tried the credit card payment reader, but given how well put together every other aspect of this site is, I have no doubts that the credit card reader is also working. I'll try that next time I use this charger, because I guarantee you there will be a next time. You know, in this case, like I said, I still have some shopping to do, some things I need to pick up. So Burrito Bandito will have to wait. But yeah, just everything about how this was implemented was great. And then 50 cents a kilowatt hour. I know some of you are going to say, hey, wow, that's really expensive. Not for California, not for Northern California. It's cheaper than the superchargers. It's cheaper than Pilot Flying J, obviously. It's almost as cheap as Electrify America with an app, with the membership. And, you know, it's as cheap as basically, yeah, it's as cheap as even Electric Era. So no complaints about the pricing from a Northern California perspective. Great location, right off the freeway. I'm literally looking at I-5 South on-ramp right now. Yeah, there's really nothing else to say other than, like I said, I need to go grab some stuff for shopping, and just excellent job, Mercedes, and I'm looking forward to the next few sites that you put in here. Holy cow, this is good. All right, so I decided to stop here at the Pilot on the way back. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and close this trip video out here. I am gonna need to stop at the other Walmart. There's some stuff that they didn't have for the pets at the Walmart I stopped at in Red Bluff. But yeah, I just kind of, like I said, wanted to put a bow on this trip. I'm still kind of processing with the Mercedes-Benz High-Power Charging network. And I think I'm going to try to write another newsletter article just to sort of coincide with this video, because as I was driving back down here, I was thinking, you know, in my experience, in my limited EV owner charging experience, I think Mercedes-Benz High-Power Charging network might be the gold standard. And I don't use that term lightly, and I am using it in the context of an EV owner experience, right? Because I think some people can correctly say, hey, look, a 4-stall charging station just isn't that big. It isn't that compelling. You could have issues with overcrowding if a single unit goes down. And then you have to say, well, if a single unit goes down, then yeah. But I'm also thinking, like I said, given where it is in the region, the size of the parking lot where that charger is placed, I think in this sort of instance, you can kind of give Mercedes-Benz High-Power Charging a pass, just because, like I said, that parking lot maybe has 30 spots. So if you even add a third Alpitronic unit, now you're looking at taking up over 20% of the parking lot just for dedicated EV charging. And I don't know that that's fair to the businesses. And like I said, I would much prefer a diversification of locations rather than piling on in any one single location. And so I think in this context, in this case, I think 4 stalls is probably adequate. We still have to see how they plan to fill in the rest of the I-5 corridor that they're currently planning to build out, and apparently they've already broken ground on a couple of other sites. So they're, you know, pending some updates on this. What I will say though is it's just the overall user experience, because the cables, super easy to use. The speed of the chargers, you really can't argue with that. We need to go when it's nighttime to just see how good that lighting actually works, how well lit the chargers and the area is, but the interface is great. It gives visibility and details. I would even say the usage of the cables, maybe you could consider an Easter egg. But I find that super useful to know, right? How much usage those cables have. The fact that I can use an RFID card from ChargePoint, and again, this is also showcased. I tried to stop the charge. It would not let me deactivate the charging session until I swiped my RFID card. This is the same functionality that ChargePoint uses to ensure that some random passerby can't just stop your charge. If you're there actively charging, first come, first serve, and then, like I said, it's just all of the small little details about how they managed it. And I think we spoke about this on Coast to Coast EVs when we spoke with Mercedes High-Power Charging Network, and it's as though they're taking the Mercedes-Benz experience, right, and support, and extending that out to people who didn't necessarily buy a Mercedes-Benz EV. So you're getting that Mercedes-Benz experience, that Mercedes-Benz treatment, without having bought a Mercedes-Benz vehicle. And that's a really important thing, because it really is a luxury class experience. Now, I know other things we can nitpick, things like a canopy or whatever, but like I said, the overall just total experience of it, I feel like they're setting a new standard. I have not had a chance to use Iona yet, so to be fair, Iona might offer all of the same things. My experience with Iona might be equally as good as my experience with Mercedes. And then again, people made a comment when I was being critical and sort of providing some constructive feedback for Electrify America, and they said, "Look, you're not using Electrify America anymore," and clearly I still poke fun at Tesla. I'm not using Tesla superchargers anymore, and they're like, "Well, where are you going to charge?" Well, I've got chargers everywhere. And all joking aside, though, I think this just short trip kind of shows that, right? EVgo, well supported. Pilot Flying J, still building out, but decently supported. I didn't even show Electric Era on this, and yeah, they're covering this corridor as well. And then BP Pulse coming in hot, and then of course we have Mercedes-Benz High-Power Charging Network. Lots of choices. And I was speaking with that Lightning owner when I was there, and like I said, he didn't even realize those chargers were there, and that was a location that he was going to use anyway. So now I think Mercedes might have already found a new customer, right? So yeah, I think there's some small things, like they had the trash cans there, they didn't have squeegees. It's going to be kind of hard at a location like that. The businesses there aren't really used to providing that type of accommodation. There isn't a canopy. Again, that's kind of a problem. But yeah, just the overall experience was great. I think how Mercedes-Benz High-Power Charging Network implemented that site is great. I'm looking forward to their future sites. And yeah, it's just becoming super easy now to travel this Northern California corridor. Hopefully we have some updates with BP Pulse. And then, like I said, the next time I use Mercedes, I'll probably use a credit card just to validate, just to make sure fair is fair. A lot of these smaller, newer networks are having issues with their payment, even though it's required, right, in California, having an issue with their payment readers, their credit card payment readers, or at least not allowing you to pay solely with credit card, right? You're having to provide an additional app, or you're having to create an account, none of which should be required by the letter of the law in California. It should just be, you've got a credit card, you can pay at the point of sale, no additional information required, nothing else is needed. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to close it out here. Like I said, I have a little bit more shopping to do. Little guy finally finished his food, his dinner. And yeah, as always, thank you for watching.